Number 1. Down there. There was a man and a woman who lived on a run-down farm in the middle of nowhere. The husband was a mean and cantankerous old man who took pleasure in making his wife's life miserable. He seldom spoke to her, and when she said anything, he would tell her to shut up. One day, the man was digging a well on his property, and his wife was helping him. All of a sudden, the bottom dropped out of the deep hole. The man was puzzled and wanted to see what had happened, so he told his wife to go back to the house and fetch a flashlight. When she came running back with it, he switched the flashlight on, tied it to a rope, and lowered it down into the hole. It went down and down, but no matter how much rope he let out, it never seemed to reach the bottom. The man started pulling the rope back up, but it got caught on something. He started pulling on it, but it felt like something was pulling back. Frustrated, the man gave it a big tug, and suddenly, the rope was almost yanked out of his hands. Eventually, he managed to pull the rope up, but when he got to the end of it, the flashlight was gone. Instead, there was a small white pouch attached to it. With trembling hands, he opened it, and to his surprise, a chunk of gold tumbled out, along with a handwritten note. He picked up the note and tried to read it, but it was written in a language he couldn't decipher, so he tossed it away. He told his wife he was going to town to buy more flashlights and ordered her to keep an eye on the hole while he was away. As soon as he was gone, she hurried back to the house and rummaged through the cupboards looking for a dictionary. Then she took a big piece of ham out of the fridge. She also grabbed a pen and paper and wrote a note. When she returned to the hole, she put all these items in a bucket, tied it to a rope, and lowered it down. The woman waited for a while, and then she pulled the rope back up. It seemed much heavier, and twice she had to stop to take a rest. When she finally hauled the bucket back up, she was shocked to see that it was filled to the brim with sparkling jewels. There was also another note, and this time, it was in English. It read, "Send more food." She hurried back to the house and hid the jewels where she was sure her husband wouldn't find them. When the man returned, the back of his pickup truck was filled with flashlights. He put a few of them in the bucket, lowered them down, but when he pulled the rope back up, he was outraged to find that the bucket wasn't filled with gold or jewels, just a few broken flashlights. He flew into a violent rage, stomping on the remains of the flashlights and cursing at the top of his lungs. Then he ran back to the house and fetched a shotgun. He told his wife he was going to go down in the hole and give them a piece of his mind. She begged him not to go, but he was so furious he wouldn't listen. He attached a big oil drum to the winch on the back of his pickup truck. Then, he climbed into the drum. He gave his wife orders to lower him down, and after 10 minutes, bring him back up again. She threw the switch, and the man was lowered down in the oil drum. The woman stared at her watch as 10 whole minutes passed. Then she flicked the switch, and the winch began to drag the oil drum back to the surface. She peered into the drum, but her husband wasn't there. Instead, it was filled with gold bars, jewelry, and coins. Sitting on top of them was another note. It read, "Thanks for the meat." Number 2. Party crashing. Halloween is by far my favorite time of the year. The one wonderful day where walking around with the mask on is socially acceptable. Masks hold quite a unique place in society. A mask can transform anyone into something else, turn an actor into a character, hide the secret identity of a superhero, or even allow monsters to walk amongst men. You never know what's behind a mask until it's taken off, but that's the best part about Halloween. No one is going to take off anyone's mask. There is no gang of teenagers with a talking dog to strip away my disguise and reveal the truth underneath. No, this is reality, and on Halloween, I'm perfectly able to hide in plain sight. Of course, wearing a mask has its own special meaning for me. I'm not an actor, superhero, or even a monster. Not in the fictional sense, at least. No, I simply use a mask as a means of entry. Any mask works really, so long as it covers my face. I manage to use a different one every year. All I need to do is walk the streets of my suburban neighborhood, weave my way through various decorations, and dodge packs of trick-or-treaters until I hear the familiar blaring of loud music. Like a sailor to a siren at sea, I'm drawn to the music, to the party that it emanates from. Yes, this is why Halloween is wonderful. No one seems to ever ask questions at the door to a Halloween party. All I really need to do is knock and wave when the door opens. The mask makes people just assume I'm there for the party. Hell, sometimes people just leave their front doors wide open, allowing even easier access to their home. On Halloween, no one gives a second glance towards a masked man walking his way through their midst, which is what makes my hobby so fun. They are completely oblivious as I approach their food. They continue to chatter and gossip as I add my own special ingredient to their bowl of punch. They continue to dance and play as I stab small, sharp needles into their chocolates and sweets. It is not until their first friend drops to the floor, either choking on my poison or coughing up bloody needles, that people start to panic. It's the same every year. As soon as I leave the party and hear the chaos rising behind me, an unstoppable grin forms under my mask. Screams of terror are such a pleasant noise for such a pleasant holiday. Number 3, twist ending. There was a very famous author named David who had written quite a few best-selling horror novels. All of the literary critics praised his talent for plot twists and surprise endings. He received a large amount of fan mail every day, and some budding authors even sent him manuscripts in the hopes that he would help them get their work published. While David took pleasure in responding to letters from his fans, he took even more pleasure in stealing the ideas of amateur writers. If he came across a manuscript with a great idea for a scary story, he would use it in one of his own books and deny the author any credit. Then, in order to hide his theft, he pulled some strings with his friends in the publishing industry to make sure that the original author never got anything published in the future. One day, David received a new manuscript in the mail. It was bound in a beautiful hardcover book. He read the first chapter and felt that he knew how the story would end. As he continued reading, he became more and more certain that he could guess the twist ending. It was growing late, but he wanted to finish reading the manuscript to see whether or not he was right. When David came to the final chapter, he realized that the last few pages of the book were stuck together. Anxious to read further, he pulled the pages apart. He felt increasingly tired, but he still kept reading. Finally, he came to the end of the book. It was exactly the twist ending he had anticipated. The husband had hanged himself just as the wife was committing suicide in the next room. David made a mental note to steal the idea and use it in his next story. Just then, he noticed that after the words, "the end," there was a little handwritten comment from the author, and it read, "I already know that you're planning to steal the ideas in this story. I know because you did the exact same thing to me the last time I sent you a manuscript. You published it under your own name, didn't give me any credit. You ripped me off and blacklisted me in the industry. Nobody will accept my novels anymore, and I will never be able to publish anything I write. You've ruined my life, and now I'm going to have my revenge. You had to pull apart that back page in order to read that, didn't you? Well, those pages contained a poison. Arsenic, to be precise. Are you feeling tired? That is normal. It's one of the symptoms of arsenic poisoning. Soon, your heartbeat will get slower and slower until it eventually stops permanently. Don't bother trying to call an ambulance. You'll be dead before they arrive. You've already been exposed for too long. Goodbye, David. Some twist endings can be very hard to predict.